Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Readers Let's Community Session. This will be part 1 of 3 of the series Developing Startups in Kenya. So first things first, I'm going to ask Prince to introduce himself, tell us briefly about his interests and his business. Prince.
Hi everyone. My name is Charles Oduk, alias Prince. I'm a mechatronics engineer, but most importantly, right now I'm a tech entrepreneur. So I basically run a company called PAIC Limited, which has given birth to other products and other companies, or rather other products and other companies. But most importantly, the interest here is for creating tech solutions for the African niche. So basically, we're just creating tech IoT solutions that can benefit the African people and in the long term change lives that people will actually benefit from. So right now, like I mentioned, I'm a mechatronics engineering graduate from JQuat. I graduated in 2017. I started my company in 2013, actually. By that time, I was second year. Like I mentioned, I got into mechatronics engineering in 2012, September. And for me at the time, well, for the first year, it was majorly around introduction to what is engineering, which already I really had interest in. But even given my history from way back in high school, primary school, I loved playing with wires and electronics. So I think my destiny was just meant to be in the space I am right now. When I got into JQuat usually has all these platforms where people usually benefit from. So you get to exhibit your projects. That is Tech Expo. I think there is ISEC. There is JQuat SES. I don't know. You guys maybe changed it to something else. I was also a member there. But then at the time, it wasn't majorly around building a company. I think I was in the position where most youth are still right now, which is most users are very afraid of starting from scratch, and starting from scratch is really not an easy process, and that's true. But usually, a lot of people end up giving up in the middle. But then for me, so I had a passion in robotics, majorly just tech solutions. So these were robotics, drones, smart farming, smart homes, smart living, and things like that. And then as time progressed on in 2015, I think was the first time I presented a project in Tech Expo. This was a construction material elevator system. That was JQuat Tech Expo. I had the privilege of presenting to Dashan Chandaria, people like Dr. Bitangendemo. Basically, these guys in manufacturing and, of course, the ICT field. And then the following year, that was in 2017, which also happens to be the same year I graduated, I presented another project, but this time I was now focusing on agriculture, that is agri-tech solution. And by this time, my interests were around drones and robots. So I built this multi-terrain, multi-hybrid, hybrid multi-terrain, multi-purpose vehicle. So it had 6 legs. I hope you guys can see that. Hello?
Yes, you can see it.
Yeah, so basically it was just a 6-legged robot that was integrated with the drone. But then at this point was just to create something that could maneuver through any terrain. So be it rough areas, because the robot could walk. It's a 6-legged robot. It walks like a crab. And then on air, the vehicle will fly. So this will be sent by farmers to the farms to take farm data, take even soil samples, and then at some point, the legs will be programmed to perform like hands. So we could perform things like pruning, basically just automating everything in the agricultural sector. So in Tech Expo, it did not win. But then for me, it wasn't even about whether I won or not. I just wanted to basically just show people that at least these solutions can now be harnessed and create and built in Africa. So in 2018, I started working, and I think from the onset I could just say that employment wasn't meant for me, because from my first job I worked only 8 days and quit. 8 days. And then the second job I will be filling tenders in some company in town, which again I later quit. But then at this time I'd already registered my business. This is now PAIC Limited, and then from there now I started now creating more of this. And then along the way, around February, there was a competition called the Kenya National Innovation Agency. So I applied for that, and then I happened to have won some cash award money that was around Kenya shillings 150,000. Well, it was enough to at least create some more models and maybe better the idea. So, and of course, there were a lot of issues around employment. I moved from one job to the next. I mean, I can say within that time frame around towards the end of May, I quit again. Then I started working as an electronic engineer in a casino. But then it's not like the struggles ended. But then during that time is when I started building the product that we already have today in the market called the Babegi. So I will basically build it from basic plastic, like the stuff that architects use to build their models. So that was the very first one, and that was the very basic one. We just needed to demonstrate the idea. And by the time I was launching my company in 2018, this is now towards the end, I had already quit employment. I quit employment in 2018 in November, and then something like a magic really happened. So this company called Africa Stocking, which is currently where we are today, approached me, and they were like, "Oh, we can create value with you. It looks like you really have a passion for what you do." So I came in as an entrepreneur in residence. Basically, that's a position that's given to young upcoming entrepreneurs who want to build businesses that are sustainable. So of course I did not have any working business, but then I just told them, yeah, I really want this chance. So yeah, and then within 7 months we had a product that was standing. So but then at the same time I was already working on another one, which is now smart farming. So I started looking into this drone, but the drone was, I remember when I was presenting this drone, one of the issues I had was the cost. Yes, it was performing perfectly, will even lift up to 7 kilograms of dead weight. So it was quite good. But then the issue was around the cost. The African people are still suffering. They cannot even provide 100 shillings per day for themselves. So you selling a drone worth 450,000 to them did not make much sense at the time. So of course, I had put so much work and investment in the project, but coming to think of it, they were right. Africans need those basic solutions first. But then in the long run, you have to target your market, because when you're growing a product, there are three things you have to look at. What is the problem? What is the solution? And then how do you get money out of that? So because of that, we had to scale down from almost everything I was already innovating to only to two final products. That is the smart farming system, which we are already taking to the market as we speak, and then the Babegi that has been in the market for over 1 year now, and maybe some other services like 3D printing, circuit designs, and fabrication and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it is up today. And so I can say the journey has had its own issues, but it's a matter of constant iteration and hard work without giving up. You never give up when you want something. When you have a dream, you just don't give up. You have to find new ways of pushing in there.
NPACT, this is an NGO. It did a startup ecosystem report that was published in 2019. and they were checking on startup friendliness index. This is basically the potential of cities to advance entrepreneurship. So these are some of the foundings. They found that human capital in Kenya, specifically in Nairobi, is not an issue. However, access to capital by entrepreneurs and their business is a major issue. And tell us how crucial capital access is to a startup. You can also tell us why there is limited access to finance in Kenya and how aspiring entrepreneurs can go around that.
Okay. For any business to grow, there has to be an investment, and I can tell you for sure. Even during my presentations of the 3 times I presented in Tech Expo, and of course the one time that I was also a judge, I think it was a matter of learning. Every single time you're building a product, yes, it's about your passion, and that's the thing. You have to be very passionate about what you're taking out there. But what really needs to play the role is investors do not look at your passion. Very rare people will invest in your passion. I mean, like I said, I still love robots. I still get guys contacting me about robots, but when it comes to accessing capital, there has to be something called a business plan, and then the business plan has to be good enough that it can convince anybody who wants to give you money. It has to be good enough to convince them. This is where we introduce something called a pitch deck. Pitch deck is basically, okay, for now I don't think it's really important for you guys, but then there's that thing called elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a 3-minute thing. You have to assume you will meet Mark Zuckerberg in the elevator. Now you're moving from 1st floor to 6th floor. Within those few minutes that you're with him until you get to the 6th floor, you should have already completed. And you should have answered the 3 questions I was telling you. What is the problem? What is the solution? And then how will it create value? And in terms of value, I'm talking of money. And in terms of solution, how unique is yours? So under these 3 categories, there are other small subcategories that you have to look into. Venture capitalists, these are basically guys who, I don't know, invest in businesses. These people they will not go into your business if you cannot prove for yourself how you're going to be sustainable. Most of the time, we are very overambitious, and that's a good thing. That's a good drive. But I think one of the things that usually happen is when your passion is not met in the right way that you personally had planned, you get discouraged and you run away, or you quit, or you say, no, the Kenyan scenario is like this. Things are, like I usually say, things are not okay around here, by the way. This is Africa. So I think your solution has to be convincing enough. If you want to build me a robot, maybe the solution is maybe this robot, or maybe let's say you want to build me a drone, but then this drone, you need to tell me what it will solve. Because yes, it could be solving the issue of accessibility, sending food to remote areas. Yes, that's a problem and it is there. But then how will it benefit you? If you have to sell me a drone at 100,000, how will I get back my 100,000? What manpower do you need? What salaries? We call them operation expenses. So once your operation expenses versus the cost of setting up your business is making sense, then definitely you'll get money. Somebody will just come in and say, oh, okay, the idea is awesome. Can it create money? Yes. Is it viable? Yes. Is it solving is it unique? Is it in such a way that nobody else can copy it? Because again, investors do not want to invest into something that somebody else is doing, and then they end up either big competition or I don't know. For instance, if somebody, let's say one of us guys here, we want to start a taxi company. Of course, there's a very huge competition when it comes to comparisons with the competitors like Uber, Bolt, and stuff. So you have to, I mean, the issue is you have to find a way of solving the problem that you want to solve in a unique way that has not been done before, or in a unique way that people will actually pay for. So that's how you can actually attract investors. I don't know what you asked next. I can't remember. Well, sorry.
I asked, now, how can aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe who think they have brilliant ideas but don't have any money, how can they get access, or where can they go to get access to capital?
I think the issue around funds is usually propelled by young and upcoming entrepreneurs being convinced that they need money to start. To start, you don't. In fact, money should actually come when you're almost finishing, when you're almost just launching. At the same time, what you need to do during this period is you need to grow your product, work on it, make it in such a way that I do not have to interact with the. For instance, I'll still go back to, let's say, the fridge. If you look at the fridge, you never see any wires around it. The reason why they make it that way is so that anyone can get easy way of using it without interacting with any technical part. People do not want complications with their lives. So once you work on your product and you feel that like you, and of course a product has to go a couple of iterations. Of course, the very first model of your stuff, like I said, mine was barely plastic. I wouldn't take plastic to anywhere, but the idea is you have to keep on working on that product until it's something that can now survive on its own in the market. So I think that user journey, we call it the user journey. It's usually very important for any upcoming entrepreneur to work on, and then from then, in fact, most of the resources you need in terms of cash flow usually comes when you're now scaling. So this is when you need new employees. You now need somebody who can handle your technical team. You now need somebody who can handle your marketing team and such things. So that when you take your product outside there, and it has to be something that people will accept. Yeah. Some companies usually pick up within the first few days of being given funds, but then they end up failing because one way or another, it's either they lose the focus and they start concentrating on other things. Yeah. So that's how any entrepreneur should look at it, or rather, that's how I did it myself.
Okay, Prince. Of making sure you have a product that the market really wants and will pay for, can you talk about the importance of having a minimum viable product and the process of validating your product? How do you know that this is something that the market will want and is ready to pay for? And how did you do it for your products?
So basically, I will not put them exactly in the exact order in which some people usually put them. But first of all, you have to have an idea. This doesn't need anything. It doesn't need any fabrication. It doesn't need to have any product down there and that's already working. And by the way, when I talk of product, I do not mean necessarily hardware. It doesn't have to be something that is tangible. It can be a software. It can be an app. It can be a web app. It can be a web page or something like that. But you have to have the idea. And then one of the most important things is you have to always do your research before you create the MVP. Now the MVP, which is the minimum viable product, it's usually a product that is usable, right? Like right now as it is, it's now usable. You can construct a phone even using wires and GSMs and programming, but then the wires are still hanging around. So that's why you see the phones have always been constantly iterating from the very big phones, and then now today we have the phone the size of your arm. So creating an MVP, you will have to go through the process of ideation. That is, of course, building the idea itself, and then then you have to look at your market. What is the problem? Like I mentioned, you have to have a problem. So from there is when you move from the idea into creating what we call a prototype. A prototype is still not a product that is usable. A prototype is just to prove a concept. A prototype is just to prove that the idea is actually workable. Then from there, you now create what we call a POC. Now, POC has now moved from a prototype to almost a product. So in between, there's the prototype, there's the ideation, the prototype process, and then the POC. The POC is basically a product that is being tested out in the market, and maybe just to prove that it's always a proof. That's why it's called a proof of concept. You have to prove that now I've done my research, I've seen how this thing can work, and this is now how it goes. Now from there is when you can come back to the tables. Of course, the POC is meant to wipe out the errors that will be there and maybe correct some of the little things that and nitty-gritty that usually comes with it. And then from there you move into a product. So by the time you're getting to POC, you should already be selling your product. Ideally, up to that point, when you're moving from a prototype to a POC, you should be able. Actually, the MVP usually starts from the POC, right? So when you're moving from the POC to the product, you should be now able to see that this is my market, this is my marketing price, and this is how I'll get money. This is my production cost. I've paid all these taxes, so that's why I feel like this is the pricing. But like I said, the POC is meant to show you how the market will respond to your product.
Okay, Prince, thank you for your response. And I have a question. So seed funding is most of the time the first investment you get. When are you supposed to ask for seed funding, or when are you supposed to look for seed funding?
I think one of the mistakes that young upcoming entrepreneurs usually make is you ask for funds to take your product to the market. You have done nothing. You have not done research. That's why it's usually put through something called an R&D, a research and development project. So basically, you're building it based on the kind of things you're seeing outside there. You like for us. Let me just allow me to talk about my product, Bebabegi. Bebabegi is a series of smart connected electronic lockers that offer temporary solutions in town, so that you don't have to work with your laptop when you're going to a movie. You don't have to work with your bag of maize when you're going to Uptown. You don't have to work with your bahasha when you're going to see person A. You don't have to work with your, for ladies, you don't have to work with your handbag inside the club when you're partying. So basically what you do is we have created it in such a way that the only thing you need to do is come and tell us whether you're storing. When you're storing, it will ask you, it will avail you the available lockers, then allocate you and automatically open. After that, you store, go do your business. When you come back, it will have calculated how long you've taken, and then it will show you on the screen. Once you accept, payment will be initiated from that point. Now you see if within that short journey alone, it should have already shown you that by that time, you still need to keep on advancing in every level of that. There's a lot of things that usually come by a product. For instance, for us, just using the examples I've given you, we needed to build a proper payment system. Will we charge them before or will we charge them after? You have to do your due diligence. You have to go outside there and actually go and ask people. Look at what the kind of solution people are willing to pay for. Do not take a solution that can serve one area of land into another, rather one group of people to the next. For instance, for right now, if you give an iPhone to Shosho, your business will not make it. But then if you give it to a youth, because that's exactly what the youth are. As in, people have different tastes, different levels of, how they want how they want things to be done for them. So I think it's usually very important for people to look into such things. And then also make sure that you know what kind of steps you're following, so such that by the time your product is moving, as you keep on working, and you should never just believe that you're always right. For a while, this is a thing that's usually our problem. We usually just believe that sisi venye tumeiweka ndo ita happen or else ni hivyo. So that's one of the reasons that usually pushes a lot of investors away. They usually want to see if you're actually willing to listen to what they would propose for you. So you see, if you, for instance, let's say you're building an app that maybe collects money for people, but then they tell you, do not put that in somewhere like somewhere like do not put that at somewhere like say Lavington. Why? Maybe probably Lavington people prefer the bank because maybe by the time an investor is coming to you with such kind of information, is looking at this is somebody who has been there before you, so they're giving you information based on their experience. So when probably they'll tell you, apana, you go to Kayole people will need to save like 50 shillings a day. That's why it could actually work there. Yeah, so I think you as you progress with your product or service or whatever it is you're building, it's usually very important to look at your end goal and your end customers will change anytime. You could go for one customer, but then you realize that's actually not even your customer. And there's something that somebody told me, you can start by even a car making company, but then for some reason you end up selling tissue paper. So long as that money is still there, and you're still following your end goal, just keep on going.
Okay, Prince. So there's a question that came up when you were on break. Someone was asking, which one should come first? Is it the business plan or the MVP? And what exactly is a business plan?
Okay. So what usually comes first between an MVP and a business plan is most of the time they're usually concurrent. But if you look at how you should proceed with or rather how your business needs to get into the market, you need to do an MVP first, right? You need to build the product. You need to build the very minimum product that can already go to the market. Then after that, you now write a business plan. A business plan is basically a document that outlines how your business is going to make money, how your business is going to attract, how a business is going to maintain those customers. So there is attract, and attract, we're talking of things like marketing. Are you going to give people t-shirts written Solos companies, something like that? That could be your way of attracting customers. Now, how are you going to maintain them? Because you could you could tell a customer, I sell this app at 200 shillings, but then he finds out that you are selling a delivery app for 200 shillings, yet Jumia can deliver things for me at 50 shillings. So in the long run, yes, you attracted him, but then you won't keep him because your business plan is not stating exactly how the customer will benefit. And then how do you attract more? So after you've gotten your first 100 customers, is that where you stop? No. So what do? You maybe probably increase your marketing props. Now you start doing things like social media ads. Maybe you circulate, like for me personally, and I'm told you guys are solo. I think there's a graduation in JQuat on the other week. I've been called there to I've been called there to generally come and see if the lockers will serve them for temporary storage during that graduation process. So you see, in that kind of a case, what I'll do is probably I'll create a document that I'll leave there at the entrance of the gate. So you use my service, but then you get this handout that you go with so that you understand how my project works and if it could serve even better. You never know how many people you'll meet outside there. Some of them are very heavy people outside. Some of them are very big people, but then you could be looking at them like, we are kuna. And then it so happens that those are the people who are going to take your product out there. So it's usually very important to master those. Yeah. So business plan, I repeat, is a document that outlines how a business will attract customers, will keep customers, and will keep on attracting, and will increase the customer count. And then at the same time, business plans usually have things like financial projections. How are you planning to execute your plan? Now you already have the product. That's why I'm telling you, you need an MVP first for this. It's very important that the MVP outlines, or rather the MVP is basically, by the way, the MVP has nothing to do with documentation, market, or anything. It's just a product. So now the business plan is now what business plan is actually the document between the product and the market, right?
All right, it was Jeroya who was asking that question, and I'm sure he's got his answer. And now moving on, we've talked about access to finance, but you debunked that and said when you're starting, you actually don't need money.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, I've read about. I think even you've mentioned there are some barriers when entering this entrepreneurship journey. For example, you've told us that Kenyans are not particularly rich, so there are some products that you cannot really sell to them. So, in light of that, can you tell us about how we can consider the price for our products and other barriers apart from access to finance that as aspiring entrepreneurs can consider while coming into the market?
So basically, how do you determine your pricing model for your product, right?
Yes, how do you determine your pricing model? Apart from that, I also want you to talk about, for example, maybe factors, things that may deter aspiring entrepreneurs from entering the market. So what can they look out for as they come into the market as entrepreneurs?
Okay. Yeah, I'm still listening. Oh, that's all. I have to answer this too.
Yes, you can start with those.
So first of all, it's very important to actually know how, like I said, and this usually comes in within the business plan. Your business plan has to clearly state out how you're going to sell your product and at what price. And if it's at a certain price, then why is it that yours will have to go at that price? I will still use an example of the iPhone company. You see, iPhone phones are usually very expensive than if you compare with these other companies. But for them, you usually find that people go for their phones maybe first for the experience, and then maybe most importantly for security. Because but then they base their pricing model based on the kind of service or rather the product they're giving you. So it's not entirely about building a cheaper solution. Sometimes it could be expensive solution, but it's something that people want. I think you guys have also had rumors around how Android is usually very easy to crack. Okay, but not very easy, but it's ni rahisi. It's very rare you hear that somebody cracked an iPhone, but then it's a lot of stories going out there. It's Android phones are easy to access from by remote by I don't know hackers or whatever it is. So when you're determining your pricing model, and I will tell you for free, what personally, I'm not usually building expensive product. If anything, I'm usually cutting down on those prices just to see if I can create a cheaper solution for Africans and then create value at the same time. So when you're creating your product, I mean your product pricing model, you have to look at what is the target market. You cannot take an expensive car. Let's say you take a limousine and then you go sell it in an area where people do not afford that kind of a lifestyle. At the same time, if you take something too cheap outside there and then your target market is people living in higher end areas, they'll underlook it. They'll be like, this is too cheap to be true. So you have to always balance that out. Where is your target? Are they able to afford this? What is the solution that is already there? What is the pricing model for that solution? What value addition are you adding? Are you giving it the same 100% as the other person, but then your pricing is either cheaper or higher? There's usually a lot of factors that keep on interchanging within determining that. Now, some of the problems entrepreneurs are facing or will face is, I think, strategic planning is usually one of the biggest failures. You find somebody skipping one part, one section of product development to the next without actually under 100%, exploring one. So first of all, there is usually that market research. So you find somebody has already built a product which he or she has invested a lot of money in. And I think from my own story, you guys must have learned by now that I did that mistake. And by the way, you'll make a lot of mistakes as entrepreneurs. So personally, I created a drone that was quite expensive, but I had not done my research properly. It was perfect. It was working. People liked it. It was responding well. Sensors were giving live data, even drawing graphs and stuff like that. But the question was, how many targeted? What were the customers I'm facing? And then I will go like, apana, me, I'm targeting farmers. Now, how many farmers can afford 450,000 worth of a drone? Yet they can even buy. Mtu hata ataargue na wewe ni buy Uber basi in that case. So you see, it's usually you have to have a way of convincing them. Like I said, you have to create a product that is convincing. That first it's a solution they need, and then secondly they need to pay for it. So these mistakes of entrepreneurs make, and yes, it's okay to make these mistakes, but then repeating them is what will now draw your business back. If you already learned that a certain market is not ready for a product, do not push in too hard. Do not overinvest in that kind of a market. Look for another market or change your strategy. Maybe change your functionality. Maybe this robot ilikuwa ni ya kudeliver chakula, but then now you can now change it into a cleaning robot. Now you see it's the same product, but then now you've given it an additional function. So right now it can now, it can now work in any such that even if the other market fails and this one peaks, you can do what is now called an R&D. So you put your project, while it's still playing its role somewhere else, you continue researching on some other avenues, right? So now that you guys know about Bebabegi, I will say we use the Bebabegi lockers for what? For storage in busy areas, so town, nini. But then, at the same time, we are now researching and looking into how we can use these things even for storages, for storage in large package areas. Like even in hospital, they usually have a problem of medicine disappearing. So if our lockers can be digitally integrated with their system in such a way that they can monitor, it's me who opened that locker, therefore I'm the one questionable. That's a solution to them already. But then if I had started with that, maybe if I had started with another one, and let me also give you another example. Our lockers could be installed in real estates, and then people from Jumia and Kilimall, so you order stuff online, you get it inside your locker. That's another use case. So you always have to, a product may have 1,000 use cases, but if you are persistent on only following one, chances are you'll either lag behind or you'll fail, because you will overinvest your time and money. So these little mistakes and problems usually pile up, and then do not get attached too much onto a certain functionality or some sort of, I don't know. If you ask me right now, the Mbele na Biz winners, there was a business plan competition that was put up. There were around 750 winners in there. And I can tell you for sure, I always see what people are writing on those WhatsApp conversations. And I can tell you for sure, most of them are going to have a problem. People are like, they are so doing nothing right now just because they know there's money coming in. But then the money did not arrive within the time they were expecting. The money was supposed to have arrived on March 15th. It's almost 11 days past that. What? Yeah, 11 days. They're just pushing complaints and complaints and complaints. But then if you tell somebody what is your business, they'll simply tell you, oh, my business, I sell cosmetics. So now, what will you do with that? I'll expand my business. How will you expand? People are not, the youth are not strategizing on these kind of things. And they think that could actually cause you problems. So you always have to have a plan, right? You always have to work in steps. Do not skip any step along a product development.
Okay, Prince, thank you for that response. What I've picked is you need to pivot when it calls for that, and to not also get attached. Yeah, so while you were talking, I thought about acceleration programs. I have NILAB, and I thought, is it important for aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are just starting to join such programs? Because then they get advice and mentorship. And in your case, in the Mbele and his case, like you talked about, maybe those who are just waiting for the money, who are in such programs, they have the right advice to know how they can move forward?
Okay. Yes, I will advise that if you are looking into, the good thing is most of us engineers, we are more of a product people more than marketing people. But then if you join such let me call them innovation hubs, they usually provide programs where you're now being transitioned into how can you be both, or rather how can you play both roles at the same time? How can you build your product, but then at the same time be also a marketer for the same? So yes, that's a yes for me.
Okay, so it's important to join such programs. Did you join one yourself, or does
to be honest, I will say no. That's the truth. I did not. I think for me, I had to I'm a self-taught entrepreneur. I basically learn through interacting with people. So I just go to town. By the way, I'm usually sort of offended. I just stop someone and ask him, "Why are you working with this?" Because there's no storage space in town. So sometimes you have to go down there and get first-hand information. Some people will have done the research for you if you're lucky. But if you're introducing a new product, it's usually very important that you either get advice or join these innovation hubs, or you go down on your own. So I chose my own path of going down to the customers themselves.
Okay. Yeah, and I think both can work, so it depends with the person. And then I also read about the Kenya startup law. So do you have any information on that, and can you talk about it? For example, it will tackle things like tax breaks for enterprises. Kenya startup law.
Law.
Yeah.
I
don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, I know about it, but then I will also tell you that a startup is not necessarily a business that's not making money. A startup, well, I mean, even Africa Stocking is still a startup. So, but then at what level are you required to meet certain standards so that you can now be considered a startup? These laws are usually designed in a way that you as an entrepreneur should be able to know where your business stands. So if you're an entrepreneur starting from scratch, I think the few things that you need to look into are maybe the legal procedures of getting your stuff out there, and then maybe most of them will start looking for you when you're now starting to make money. So right now, instead of focusing so much on what the law says about this and what I need to do before I get there, deal with, like I said, plan yourself, deal with stuff one by one, such that by the time you're realizing, oh, my robot needs a SIM card. So at that point now, oh, then I will need to follow the legal procedures for getting a communication authority certificate, right? But then before you get there, you will have at least gone somewhere. You need to start. Personally, if you ask me, we have not even interacted with these guys. We're still trying to introduce a product, because you could end up spending so much money on these legal procedures. You end up after certificate, CAK, and then that's like 100,000. You don't even have that. You have not even created anything. You have an idea, but you already, like, that's what I was telling you earlier. Skipping the stages that you need to follow one by one.
Okay, I think that is what you said is very important, because maybe there are so many people who think about registering and they've not even had they don't even have a product. So when will you advise people to now register officially?
When would I advise people to register for what? For the Kenya startup law?
No, to be now, maybe to be a company. Let me just say, maybe to be a company or to be a startup, to start paying for the licenses. Is it
well,
after?
It's usually very important to register your business at least. Like I said, for me, I had to register business first. And then the good thing is they never follow up too much when it's a business. But when you incorporate into a company, you'll need to get into things like filing tax returns, of which if you fail, by the way, you're usually fined up to 10,000 plus. I have a friend who thought this was a joke, or maybe he or she didn't know. Right? It's a she actually. She didn't know, and she registered for something called PAIC. PAIC is when you have employees. So she registered for that, but then she didn't know that she needs to file all the PAICs every month. Right now, the accumulated fees are over 170,000. So she's been knocking on their doors every day. You guys, I need to reinstate my company. And you know, once you register a company that is fined, you cannot register another one. So at I think it's important that you work with your product in the lowest level you can, especially when it comes to this governance and taxing laws. So you will need to register business first. The good thing is with that, they'll never follow you until maybe you set up a business. So once you're now ready to scale, or rather you now need to increase your team, is when now you can say, apana, I now want a limited company. So you simply, in fact, during that time, it gets easier. You'll registering a business name is usually less than, I think, 3,000. I forgot the last time we did it. And then from there, you can now operate it as a business with just a license. It can be anything, but so long as you follow the right procedures. And then when you're now ready to scale and, I don't know, be a big person, your company has now grown, and now you're now interacting with big people, and you're probably sourcing funds, is when maybe you may now need to do what is called cessation. Cessation is basically dissolving the name that was there and inputting the current one. So you're basically shifting the business name to a limited company or a registered company in Kenya.
Okay, thank you for that information. I think that is information I did not have. So if you can start as a business and which is cheaper, then I think that is the path most of us who are aspiring entrepreneurs should take. Yeah, and now we are coming to the end of our session. So before I ask for guys to ask questions, I can just ask, as an individual, what are some of the skills or personalities you are looking forward to when someone wants to maybe work for you or your startup? And at the same time, what are some of the skills and personalities that someone who wants to be an entrepreneur should have or should work on?
You have divided the questions into two. One, you have asked if you want to work for somebody like me. Let's say I want somebody to work for me. And then at the same time, you've also asked if somebody wants to be entrepreneur, right? If I'm right.
Yes.
So personally, I really invest a lot in people who are aggressive and hardworking. I mean, if I give you a task, sometimes most of them, this usually happens with with a lot of employers. They will bring you in because you need to play a certain role. But then at the same time, if you're given a task, and this is an advice I'm giving you guys, even if you'll be employers or you'll need to be an employee kwanza ndio ukue employer, it's usually very important that you learn how to be creative. So you could be given a task to, I don't know, build something, maybe build something that will detect when something happens. You need to find a better way of working around that. People usually like aggressive people. If your goal at the end of your employment is getting paid, then first of all you're being unjust to yourself, because you need to grow. You need to understand that every single place you're spending your time in is about growth. So for me personally, I want to help my employees, or rather anybody that I'm working within my space, to grow personally, like individually on their own. So whether my business happens or not, God forbid, but if anything happens, my business, you yourself on your end, you can count yourself that, I got this from PAIC Limited. So I think for me, it's, and for me to do that, I'll need to see certain features in you. If I see that you're not even, well, you're reporting to work, fine. But then during these work hours, you're just waiting for either lunch, or you're writing two lines of code, and then you've disappeared, and then you're now not working again. You're poor on research. you're waiting on me, because most of the time bosses are doing a lot of things. So you keep on complaining and telling them, oh, by the way, you know, I do not know how to do this. Can you show me how to do this? If they have that time, they will show you. But let me tell you, for entrepreneurs who are usually up and down, they will not get that time. When they're in the office, fine, you can ask them and they can help you. But then when they're away, in fact, most of us, and I will say myself, I will promise you that maybe I'll get back. But then you get that I have meetings coming in and out, clients. I mean, some lockers are broken down, some customers are just rowdy around your stuff. Maybe they're just intentionally just trying to waste time for others. So we always have to correct those errors. So at that point, maybe we have a timeline to meet with you as an entrepreneur. I mean, as an employee. But then you're not willing to get there, or rather, you keep on just waiting. I come after 1 week. So where's my assignment? Or rather, where's my report? At EC, I was waiting for you to show me how to do this. So it's usually, for bosses, it's usually get a way of doing things. If I tell you I need that table moved, do not tell me in what direction. Move it. It's not that most of these guys are usually strict. It's because they have to respect their businesses. Because even without that business itself, you won't be there. So they usually have to look away for making that business survive. And by that, that's why you usually see people writing 3 years experience, and you guys after campus, you're like, 3 years and happy experience. But the thing is, they are doing that because probably they have worked with fresh graduates who are not even enthusiastic, guys who just graduated from campus and now they are ambitious about their degrees, and then like, me engineer, I have to earn 150,000. People, I think that's also a mistake that people who are getting into employment usually make. When you're coming into employment, sometimes you have to just lay low, just do your best, but then at the same time, you also have to make sure that you're growing personally. If you're not growing personally within a working environment, then that is not the right place for you. It could be the right place for someone else, but then it could be not for you. So what can work for me is not what can work for you. And then the other question you asked is there was, you as a entrepreneur. So if you want to be your own boss, you need to be strategic and very sharp with following your deadlines. You do not say that tomorrow I will go to that meeting and then postpone it and then postpone it and then postpone it. That procrastination does not do business any good. If you have to procrastinate, make sure you're procrastinating for something better. If at all you're supposed to come and meet Mimi, umekuja PAIC Limited to meet PAIC, but then Safaricom calls you on the same day, you can procrastinate mine because probably Safaricom will give you more value than mine. But then you procrastinate both of us, or you procrastinate every single thing, or you're sick, or maybe you just need to watch a movie, or you're just playing games from your comfort as in, that way you cannot be, you can be very good at creating solutions. You're very good when it comes to programming. You're very good at creating things that can actually create value out there. But then you're not aggressive about it. You're just there, like you're just lazing around. So first things first is prioritize on how you always follow your goals on the dot. Always have goals that you strictly follow by every single means. You wake up every morning, and the first thing you have to do is to research. What am I going to do today? You have a goal list, have a to-do list. Make sure you're checking in, and if a goal is pushed out, why was it pushed out? Or rather, why was that goal not met? Was it because there was a better one, or was it because something happened along the way? You did not have resources that you were expecting. You are supposed to have met someone who did not show up, something like that. But if it's majorly because of your poor decisions at planning, then definitely you will not move. Or if you move, then it will be really quite slow. People will overtake you. You could have amazing idea, but then your execution plan is so not on point, or rather it's not so met. You're not meeting your goals, your set goals, to the extent that somebody who had the same idea who is now even more focused than you, can now pass you easily. So they'll definitely overtake your business. Within a year or two, you could be hearing of that solution and you're like, what? si ni mimi ndo nilikuwa na hii idea, but then when you had the chance to execute, you're doing the wrong thing.